Basically, what people are doing today is learning how to manipulate their brain chemistry through drugs or through technology. Not only manipulate the brain chemistry, to some extent create an artificial reality. Now we have virtual keyboards we're writing on, and we're slowly creating virtual people. And many of us live in our Facebook identity, and our physical identity is disappearing. It's a kind of low-level access to the astral plane. See? Where there is the higher level access to the astral plane through the yoga, devotion, meditation, and so forth. But as long as your brain chemistry is being controlled by the outside or by somebody else, you're in trouble, right? Because someone can push your buttons, you have to pay for the medications, you have to have your pain relief, and all the rest of it. So wouldn't it be great if we could control our own inner brain chemistry? And the fact is, we certainly can do that. The food that we take in affects the brain chemistry in a certain way. Again, we talk about the gunas, the sattva, rajas, and tamas. The sattvic food is very essential for balancing, controlling, harmonizing the brain chemistry. But Ayurveda also has a whole set of herbs that also work on the tarpa kapha and can help with the development and the harmonization of the brain chemistry. And more so through the pranayama, the mantra, and the meditation. We are actually changing the chemistry of the brain and getting this inner nectar, the ananda or the soma to flow. And there's a whole science to it on many levels, from the rituals that also create a certain rasa or soma, to the whole, what Shambhavi will talk about, which is the soma of the bhakti yoga. The rasa, the emotions that come through that. We may talk about that later. Every aspect of yoga has a certain type of soma that it brings to us. So remaking our brain chemistry, and then we also building up a different quality and energy of the subtle body. The subtle body, or the sukshma sharira, is also the rasa, the soma from the physical body. Everything in life we're doing, we're gathering these energies, these rasas, impressions, or we call also vasanas or samskaras, and these rasas then build up our subtle nature, and they are connected to the karmas. They hold the karmas, they nourish the karmas, they allow the karmas to move. So what's happening today is no longer consciously developing those higher rasas, whether through art, whether through religion, spirituality, philosophy. We're developing these more, I would say, etheric energies. And this is an interesting phenomenon. Also is that, in human society is always a battle between devas and asuras. Devas being the sattvic or the spiritual energies, asuras being rajasic, tamasic, or the undivine or the anti-divine energies, not simply demons. That's kind of a superficial translation of it. And the battle between the ingoing tendencies of the mind and the outgoing tendencies of the mind. And so what we see is the technology easily lends itself to asura influences. Technology can be used by Vedic influences as well, but it more easily lends itself to asura influences because of the commercial energies, stimulation, sensation, movement, and so forth. And it's getting people more involved in the outer reality, but very curiously more involved in the outer reality as a spectator, rather than as someone who is active. So majority of people are caught in a tamasic mode of entertainment. And then you have a few rajasic type actors or entertainers who keep the rest of the people preoccupied. And so what's happening is the commercial acidic force is developing, and the Devic force is kind of receding. Or what happens is, too, for the Devic force to enter into the modern society, it has to then take a kind of asuric mode or become more active, energetic, egoistic, charismatic, and so forth. So we live in this very challenging times. Now the Devic force is still seeking to enter into the society. The Devic force is always there to some degree. And there are always individuals, ashrams, that embody the sattvic or divine energies. And in many times and ages, they've been forced to live in retreat. Go on retreat. In the Middle Ages, for example, you didn't really want to be out there in the world because you were either oppressed or put into the battlefield or something like that. So that we had the tradition of renunciation and retreat into the nature. So these forces are still there, but we have this great challenge of these outer somas and asuric energies to deal with in our lives. And it's very important to understand how powerful they are, and also to learn the tools of Ayurveda, yoga, and Jyotish to help us overcome them. Now, I don't wish to make anybody feel paranoid or afraid, and we're not projecting any end of the world scenarios, at least not at this time. But we do need to understand the nature of these influences and how they affect the mind and the nervous system. And you need to understand what is the vibration of your mind and your nervous system. What do you vibrate with? In yoga, we have the very important principle of the satsanga. By gathering together in a sattvic energy, we create a sattvic vibration. Perhaps the most important and powerful vibratory energy for the human being is association. Who we associate with on a daily basis and who we emulate at a heart level, and the people that we most often hold in our minds and hearts. For the average person, these are the athletes, the politicians, and the movie stars. And we take that lightly, but actually it's covering the whole subconscious mind. In yoga, we have a lot of cultivation of memory, smriti, or what we call also the pratasmara, the morning remembrance, because the memory is also the rasa, it's also the soma, and the memory is establishing that vibration for the mind and the heart. So how we associate, how our vibratory level is, who we vibrate with, is extremely important in dealing with our environment and dealing with these challenges today. The other thing we always have to consider is that harmony and well-being always arises through our association or connection with nature. The urban society has usually more rajasic or tamasic energies. Field of nature is more sattvic in terms of its energies and qualities. Your mind should vibrate in harmony with nature and in harmony with a deeper spiritual aspiration, connected to the Devata, connected to the Guru. And of course we have all the practices to reinforce and to bring that about. But the fact is today people are not vibrating with nature anymore. In fact, the average child has almost no knowledge of nature. If they go into nature, they go for stimulation, entertainment, running, skiing, having fun, trampling over the natural world. Or if we do honor nature, we honor from a point of science as a laboratory specimen rather than as a sacred reality. And this is a very important point because the main somas that we're taking in are through the senses, through the sensory impressions. And the higher somas are through the impressions born of nature and born of sadhana. Lower impressions are born of media stimulation and also rajasic stimulation of the motor organs. Even the type of yoga practice in the West today is covered by this rajasic stimulation of the motor organs. The vinyasa has become more important than the asana. And the ashtanga has not become the 8 limbs of yoga, it has become a style of asana practice. Because the main definition, if we study the Upanishads, human beings have a devic or an asuric mode of mind. The asura is the one who takes the body to be the self. The deva is the one who takes the consciousness to be the self. So we live in an era where that bodily image or bodily identity is being continually emphasized and stressed even in the yogic world. But we have to go back then to those deeper connections. Now all of us have to deal with the technology. You have to spend time in front of the computer. This thing very much helps to record, although I certainly would never watch myself on any type of screen. Has its value. But we need to know how to clear these vibrations from the nervous system. We say in terms of psychology what junk food does to the body, junk impressions do to the mind. We will let people into our minds that we would never let into our homes. And yet, what is worse, having somebody inside your mind or having somebody inside your house? We're not exercising viveka or discrimination relative to how we use our senses. And we're not looking at the power or the quality of attention that we are developing or the types of memories that we are cultivating. Your most important and sacred power is your power of attention. Do not give it away easily. Do not give it away on rajasic and tamasic phenomena. Do not let anyone else control it. In fact, the power of attention is the one-pointed mind that yoga is cultivating it. Without the power of attention, you cannot really practice the yoga. And also be very wary as to what you are taking in through your senses. Yoga is based upon the principle of the pratyahara, which is turning the senses within. Whereas the modern media is based on the opposite, turning the senses without, or allowing our senses and our motor organs to become too strongly connected. There should be a detachment between the sensory and the motor organs. You shouldn't allow your motor organs to be pushed by your cognitive senses, so that if somebody shows you a picture, you immediately run out and do something, we need to cultivate the attitude of the observer or the witness in doing that. So become very conscious of the type of energies, impressions, and memory you are creating in yourself at a daily basis, and learn to clear that out, the negative aspect of that out, every day or every night, or you will be taking more negative energy, more tamas, into the mind, and you will be building up more this dukkha-maya kosha instead of this ananda-maya kosha. And if you build it up day after day, year after year, it becomes very formidable. It becomes, it's like a substance you have created inside yourself. In yoga, we're cultivating that sadhana, that rasa, that yogic samskara, that yogic samadhi, that yogic memory or smriti, which allows us to develop the higher soma or the higher ananda. And for that, the practice of mantra is extremely important, because it is the mantra which is changing the vibratory pattern of the mind, and it's also changing the field of memory, so we can break down those negative rasas or those negative samskaras. So we can actually observe inside ourselves the nature of our soma, the nature of our koshas, the nature of the mind, and what we are developing. And we also have the tools in order to slowly change that. But at the same time, we have the inertia of the environment, of the stimulation, the society around us that is constantly pushing us, that is constantly pulling us from the outside, whether it's the media, the food, whether it is other people, whether it is friends and family. So we have to learn how to remove ourselves from the technological network and reconnect ourselves to the spiritual network, or the yogic network, which is also the subtle body, the chakras, the nadis, and the energies flowing through there. We need also to understand how our karmas are working and the energies that we are connected to. That is where the astrology is very important, because the astrology gives us the whole view of the subtle body and the karmic energies, and can also help us understand, particularly through the moon, how to deal with the soma, how to develop the soma, how to understand our psychology, how to deal with the emotions and all the rest of it. And if we move to the Ayurveda, a lot of the Ayurveda today, we tend to emphasize the Agni, and we also tend to emphasize the Panchakarma, or the detoxification. And yet today, there is also a great lack of Soma in people, which as we define Ayurvedically, is also a weakness of the Ojas, or the immune system.